Hello, everyone. My name is Pablo López, and today I'm here to talk about designing historical role-playing game. First of all, I'd like to extend my gratitude to the organizer of the SD HISCOM for inviting me to speak today. It's truly an honor to be here among fellow enthusiasts of historical gaming. Whether you are joining us live or watching this recorded later on, I want to extend my warm welcome to each and every one of you. Thank you for taking the time to be a part of this event. So, with no more delay, let's talk about the fascinating world of historical role-playing game. Throughout the presentation, feel free to comment via the YouTube channel chat. I'll be keeping an eye on it, so feel free to share your thought, question, or comment as we go along. If you notice any issues with my video or audio, please don't hesitate to mention it in the chat. I want to make sure that everything is working okay. At the end of the presentation, there will be also an opportunity for you to ask any questions you may have. So let's make this an interactive and engaging session. Let's get started. Okay, in this presentation, I'll begin by providing a brief introduction to the Spanish Civil War and La Desbandá massacre. Then I'll introduce you to my role-playing game, La Desbandá 1937. However, the main focus will be on discussing how to design a role-playing game based on history. I'll use the creation process of La Desbandá 1937 as a guide throughout this discussion. Okay, let me, there's something in the voice channel. I'm going to send in a message. Excuse me. Okay. Okay, but before we dive into today's topic, let me take a moment to introduce myself. As mentioned, my name is Pablo López, and I come from Spain. I have a deep passion for tabletop role-playing games, and I find great joy in creating them in my spare time. Here are my creations: La Desbandada 1937, which we'll be discussing today; El Hombre del Saco, an investigative adventure based on a historical crime for the early 20th century Spain, which gave rise to the legend of the boogeyman in Spain. I've also collaborated on the second edition of Siete Días de Travesía by creating the solitaire rule. I wanted to start with this picture. This is the opening scene of Steven Spielberg-owned film Saving Private Ryan. The initial sequence of the Normandy landing became one of the most iconic scenes in cinema. And despite being just the beginning of the movie, it often stands out as the most representative when people refer to the film, to the extent that many viewers learned about that decisive day in history from watching it. This example, like many other in the film industry, demonstrates the power of well-executed narrative in conveying historical events to the public. Such narratives can captivate the viewer, creating an ideal channel of communication with them. Moreover, when we see that group of soldiers, it becomes evident that when disseminating historical events, beyond merely describing the event, there is a more efficient way consisting of narrating it through the story of its protagonist. Viewers empathize with the characters, forming an emotional connection that enhances the transmission and retention of the message. And these two characteristics of narrating historical events are found not only in movies, but also in role playing games, making them powerful tools for historical dissemination. The context of my game, La Desbandada 1937, is set within the Spanish Civil War. While some of you may already be familiar with this conflict, I like to provide a quick overview for those who aren't. The Spanish Civil War erupted in 1936, following a failed coup by the military forces led by General Franco. Lasting for 3 tumultuous years, the conflict pit the Republican government against the insurgent faction. The war left a profound impact on Spanish society and politics, paving the way for 4 decades of dictatorship. And now we move to February 1937 in the south of Spain, specifically Andalusia. Most territories are under enemy control, except for Malaga and Almeria. And our focus is on Malaga, surrounded by adversaries and nearly abandoned by the central government, lacking resources and hope. On February 8th, fascist forces launched an offensive against Malaga, a city already deserted by both civil and military authorities. Driven by fear of advanced enemy, people begin a frantic flight toward Almeria along the only available route, the coastal road between the two cities. Thousands of refugees seeking safety under the protection of the Republican government embark on this perilous journey. For 7 days and nights, they endure attacks from sea and air. This assault culminates in the tragic death of between 3,000 and 5,000 civilians, marking one of the darkest chapters of the Spanish Civil War. And this is what we know as La Desbandá. In my role-playing game, La Desbandá 1937, players take on the roles of survivors who suddenly find themselves caught in a desperate flight to Almeria while trying to protect their lives from enemy attacks. Here are some key details about the game. The original edition, written in Spanish, was released last year. And recently, I've expanded its reach by releasing an English edition thanks to a collaborative effort with Diet Foundation, who handled the editing process. And additionally, a French translation has been made available through the collaboration with the French indie creator Doc Johnny. The book is composed of 32 pages in A5 format and is available in both digital and physical format. The digital version can be downloaded for free, while the physical version can be acquired at cut prices via lulu.com. In terms of content, the guide includes a brief introduction to role-playing games, a detailed setting chapter providing historical information about the Spanish Civil War in Malaga and La Desbandá, an adventure ready to be played. The adventure is centered around a Canadian doctor, Norman Bethune, who aided people in surviving during those tumultuous times. And additionally, the game contains a variety of resources such as character sheets, encounter tables, and maps to enhance the gaming experience. Okay, at this point, some people may wonder why I have created a role-playing game about La Desbandá. Well, the answer is quite simple. Let's break it down. First off, La Desbandá wasn't just a single event. It was a tapestry of countless individual experiences, each with his own story to tell. And this complexity mirrors the essence of role-playing games, where character stories converge to create a shared narrative. It became clear to me that the intricate nature of La Desbandá could be effectively captured through this medium. And now rewind to the end of the 20th century, and you'll find La Desbandá was virtually unknown. This presented a golden opportunity to shine a light on this overlooked chapter of history. And here's the key. Despite the wealth of role-playing games out there, the Spanish Civil War remains largely unexplored in gaming. While other conflicts like the World Wars has been extensively covered, the Spanish Civil War has been a clear omission. And I saw this as a gap in historical representation within the gaming community, and one that I set out to solve. So I made the decision to use this role-playing game as a tool for historical dissemination. By immersing players in the event of La Desbandá, the game serves as a unique educational tool, allowing participants to participate to experience history firsthand. But it's not just about educating, it's also about paying tribute. La Desbandá 1937 is a homage to the thousands of civilians who lost their lives during this tragic episode. Their story deserves to be remembered and honored. And finally, innovation. It's at the core of everything I do. Through the innovative use of role-playing games, La Desbandá 1937 offers a fresh perspective on historical storytelling. It encourages players to engage with the past in a dynamic and interactive way, breathing new life into a piece of history that might otherwise be forgotten. So, La Desbandá 1937 tried to be more than just a game. It's a journey through history, a tribute to the past, and try to be a beacon of innovation in storytelling. All right. Now let's address a question that often arises. Can entertainment be derived from war, especially from such tragic events as massacres? Well, the answer lies in two key principles. Firstly, when creating any form of entertainment, especially one based on real events like war, it's crucial to maintain accuracy and authenticity. This means researching extensively, consulting historical sources, and, and ensuring that the portrayal of events remains faithful to reality. And secondly, it's essential to approach sensitive subject with empathy and reverence. While the aim may be to entertain, it's equally important to honor the life lost and the suffering endured. This involves portraying the human aspect of the tragedy with dignity and sensitivity. By holding this principle, it's indeed possible to create entertainment out of war, all while paying homage to the historical truth and the memory of those who lived through it. We have numerous examples of this, such as two renowned films, Life is Beautiful and Schindler's List. These movies demonstrate how war can be depicted in an engaging and respectful manner, showcasing the resilience of the human spirit amidst the darkest of time. Earlier, we touched upon innovation, and the state of the art is a crucial concept, especially in the context of innovation. This is the initial step in both my creative process and innovation journey. But what exactly that is meant? Well, it's about examining existing cultural products that are similar, both in format and theme. This assessment set the stage for what comes next in the creative process. All this to answer these two questions. Does the concept we are discussing make sense? Are we reinventing the wheel? These are important questions to consider as we navigate through the creative process. By examining the state of the art, we are essentially asking ourselves if our idea has merit, if it resonates with audiences, and if it fills a gap in existing content. And additionally, it helps us avoid reinventing the wheel. If something similar already exists, it may not make sense to push the same path. Instead, it guides us on where we need to innovate and differentiate our idea. Now, let's take a look at some example across different mediums. Because regarding the Spanish Civil War, we can find several movies. We can find a lot of fiction books and even graphic novels. There are also several video games, board games, and even war games from reputable publishers like GMT. But for role-playing games, they are predominantly focused on First World War and Second World War. It's evident that these themes have found resonance and acceptance among the general public. However, when it comes to role-playing games specifically centered on the Spanish Civil War, the landscape is quite barren. In fact, there is scarcely anything in the realm of role-playing games that directly tackle this historical period. The only notable mention is Soldier of Pen and Ink, Folk Trade of Cthulhu, which merely used the backdrop of the Spanish Civil War, specifically in Madrid, from a Lovecraftian investigative adventure. This scarcity highlights the potential for a historical role-playing game focused on the Spanish Civil War, not to only make sense, but also fill a significant gap in cultural creation. Fortunately, beside my own game, now there is another notable title called Piel de Toro 1936 by Ricard Ibáñez for its directed moth of war Cthulhu fiction set during the Spanish Civil War. Okay, but now that we have established that our idea seems to make sense, we move on to the next phase, investigation. Given that this is a historical game, thorough research into the subject matter we wish to explore is imperative. For the development of La Desbandá 1937, I drew for a variety of biographical sources, each contributing to the rich tapestry of the game's narrative. For example, the first one is the book The Road Malaga Almería by Jesus Majada, who is considered the foremost historian of La Desbandá massacre Mahata's work provided invaluable insights into the events surrounding the tragedy. Another book, The Crying of the Road Malaga Almeria, by Norman Bethune, it's a first-hand account from Canadian doctor Norman Bethune, who witnessed the horrors of the massacre while providing aid to those in need. Uh, I also used video documentaries featuring first-hand testimonies from survivors of the massacre, offering accounts of their experience, a military atlas of the Spanish Civil War, providing crucial context on the military operation in the region during those fateful days, a photography book that captured the essence of the Spanish Civil War, enriching the visual narrative of the game, and a fictional book called La Desbandá, offering insights into the historical context of the era and adding depth to the game's storytelling. In particular, one figure stood out among the biographical sources, the Canadian doctor Norman Bethune. His story resonated with me and served as a compelling thread to weave into the game's narrative, as we'll explore further in the development of the game adventure. It's important to recognize the volume of historical information gathered from our biographical sources. Clearly, it's impossible to directly translate all this information into a game or to assume that players are already familiar with it. Instead, our focus now shifts to conducting a comprehensive analysis of these biographical sources. This analysis will allow us to distill the wealth of information into key elements that can be effectively integrated into the game, ensuring a balanced and engaging experience for players. And here's how I conduct the analysis of historical sources for the game. This involves two main tasks. First, we focus on extracting the historical basis for the game. We aim to create a historical accurate game, ensuring that it provides players with that authentic experience. This means including all important historical elements in our game. For example, essential elements in my case include details about the road, daily events, combat in Motril, and attacks along the route. And after establishing the historical foundation, we can extract anecdotes and other details from our sources. While this may deviate slightly from historical facts, they add depth and interest to the adventure. However, we must be cautious of falsified data that often appears in this kind of information. For instance, there are propagandistic speeches attributed to figures like Capo de Llano. Some of these speeches, particularly those in audio format, are known to be fake. We must decide whether to use them as fictional resources and maybe informing players of their origins. Additionally, we draw upon photographs and description from our sources to glean details and situations that enhance the narrative and provide realism during gameplay. These visual cues and descriptive elements play a crucial role in immersing players in the historical setting. And finally, all extractive elements are organized, whether they contribute to the overall setting or the adventure within the game. This systematic approach ensures that each component serves a purpose in enriching the overall gameplay experience. This is Anselmo Villar, the lighthouse keeper of Torre del Mar. Anselmo's story is a remarkable one. During La Desbandá, he ascended the lighthouse to extinguish its lights, preventing enemy attacks on fleeing civilians. This act of bravery serves as an example of the resilience and selflessness displayed by individuals during this tragic event. Sadly, Anselmo was later captured and executed by fascist forces just days after his heroic deed. Anselmo's story is a perfect example of incorporating anecdotes and details into the game. In La Desbandada 1937, I included Anselmo as a character whom players may encounter along their journey. Players may find themselves assisting Anselmo in his mission or undertaking this task themselves. By incorporating Anselmo's story in the game, we not only add depth to their narrative, but also pay tribute to the individuals who endured the horror of this tragedy. Now, let's take a look at this photograph from the historical photography book we mentioned earlier. This photo serves as a prime example of how historical imaginary can enrich the design of the game. It's another instance of how I incorporate details and an anecdote to add depth to the game's narrative. This particular photo ended up inspiring an encounter in the game's encounter table, a tool provided in the game. In this encounter, as players traverse through a urban enclave, they stumble upon a battle scene. Describe it as a group of militiamen taking cover behind a bunch of dead horses. It's these small yet vivid details that I incorporate into the game to enhance the richness of the narrative. After all, a battle becomes more than just a battle when infused with such realistic and picturesque elements. Now that we have this clear, let's dive into identifying and incorporating the most relevant elements of the story into our role-playing game. I categorize this element into three main categories. Firstly, we have locations, which represent the most significant place in our story. This could be pivotal battleground, important landmarks, or even mundane locations that hold historical significance. Next, we have important characters. These are individuals who play a crucial role in the narrative, either because of their historical significance or because they serve a specific purpose in our game. By including the character, we can bring depth and richness to the game world. And lastly, we must ensure that all significant events are captured in the game. These are the most representative events that shape the course of history and drive the narrative forward. By registering these events in the game, we can ensure that players have the opportunity to experience and interact with the key moments of the historical story. By focusing on these three categories, location, character, and events, we can effectively translate the richness of the historical narrative into our role-playing game. In regards to location, the importance lies in providing the where for the adventure to unfold, the backdrop for our adventure, determining where the action takes place. They give players a sense of setting and context. Moreover, from a design standpoint, location allows us to structure the adventure into different scenes. This is particularly important in my game where much of the gameplay unfolds along a journey on a single road. By introducing diverse locations, we can break up the monotony of traveling along the same road continuously. Additionally, locations serve as the stage for deploying historical facts and other events. They provide the canvas upon which the narrative unfolds, immersing players in the rich historical context of the game world. In my game, for example, locations are used to bring key historical events to life and create engaging scenarios to players to explore. As for organization, most locations are described within the adventure itself. However, certain pivotal locations may also be detailed in the setting to underscore their significance. Let's take a closer look at some of the key locations featured in the game. First off, we have Malaga and Almeria, which serve at the starting and ending point of the journey, respectively. This city mark the beginning and conclusion of the harrowing trek depicted in the game. Moving along the journey, we come to Torre del Mar. This location is significant because of the lighthouse, symbolized here, as its connection to the story of Anselmo Vilar. Next, we have the Guadalfeo River. This location holds particular importance as it was a major obstacle along the road, forcing many refugees to turn back or face perilous conditions. It became a pivotal point on the journey for many survivors. And finally, we reach Motril. Motril was a site of intense combat and crucial juncture where enemy forces disrupted the flow of refugees, leading to confrontation and challenges for those fleeing the violence. Each of these locations plays a vital role in the narrative, contributing to the immersive experience of the game and reflecting the historical event of La Desbandá. Someone is talking about they need some fiction to have enough story to RPG player. You will be speaking about how to merge fiction in a couple of minutes. Okay, let's talk about the character feature in the game. Characters play a crucial role as they are the individuals encountered along the road, shaping the player's journey and providing opportunities for interaction. In my approach, I've chosen to incorporate exclusively real historical figures. However, it's important to know that this approach may vary depending on the specific goal and themes of the game. Among the characters included in my game, I've categorized them into different types. Key setting characters, like General Capo de Llano, who are integral to shaping the historical background of the game. Key historical characters, such as Norman Bethune, whose presence and action are significant in driving the historical narrative forward, and it's more important for the adventure. Characters with their own story, like Gerda Taro, who bring their unique perspectives and experience to enrich the game storyline, and additional characters like Lauren Fesbot, who may not be centered to the historical context, but add depth and complexity to the game world. These characters are described in the setting material, providing versatility for the use in both the proposed adventure and any additional scenarios that may be devised. An example I like to highlight is that of Gerda Taro. I've included her as a character primarily because of her own fascinating story. Many people may not be aware that Gerda Taro shared the pseudonym of Robert Capa with her partner. She tragically lost her life in Madrid during the conflict, and perhaps this had contributed to her being overlooked in history as part of the renowned Robert Capa. It's essential for me to incorporate her into the game because it allows us to address this issue of oversight and truly recognize her contributions. And finally, we come to the events, which essentially are the incidents that will unfold throughout the game, setting the pace and tone of the gameplay. In my approach, I believe these events should primarily be based on real historical occurrences. While the game incorporates elements of fiction, it's essential to ground it in reality as much as possible. However, this doesn't mean we can't introduce additional fictional elements to add variety. Real events serve a deductive function, gradually introducing players to historical facts as they progress through the game. These events are mainly described within the adventure itself, although some, due to their significance, also appear in the setting. For simplicity, others are listed in a table of random encounters, ensuring they are easily accessible during gameplay. Okay, so now we have to organize all this information. The first important part of the game is the setting. Setting is a vital section of our game. And now that we have extracted all the necessary information from the historical biography, we proceed to create this part of the game. The construction of the setting is an essential step in the game development process. Its primary objective is to provide Game Master with the necessary historical context to effectively guide gameplay sessions. This is achieved by synthesizing all the historical biography we have read and analyzed it previously. In the case of La Desbandá 1937, it involves abstracting the journey from Malaga to Almería. This setting will establish the groundwork for playing both the proposed adventure in the game and will allow the creation of new adventure. In the case of La Desbandá 1937, the road between Malaga and Almería serves as a central element of the setting, as this historical episode unfolded along this route. That's why I described it as dynamic, detailing how the ambience evolves over time and distance. By enumerating the various sites along the way, we can develop interesting events for players to encounter. Obviously, it's crucial to include a map with marked point of interest, highlighting the significant location where players can interact with various elements. This map provides a comprehensive overview of the journey and allows for tracking progress throughout the history, throughout the story. The key here is to present something evidently static and repetitive as a road as vibrant and dynamic. And to achieve this, the description of different locations emphasize how they change over hours and days, adding depth and realism to the gaming experience. Another crucial aspect of the setting is the inclusion of non-player characters, the NPCs, and who will appear throughout the adventure. This allows Game Master to have a varied list of characters, in this case, with a historical context to include in their adventure. In the case of La Desbandá 1937, historical figures like General Gonzalo Queipo de Llano, who was responsible for the attack on Malaga, are utilized. But there are also other relevant characters for the adventure, like the Canadian Doctor Norman Bethune, around whom the adventure revolves. And additionally, there are characters with a more educational purpose, such as Gerda Taro, as we discussed earlier. Each of these characters must be accompanied by a character sheet according to the chosen game system, which I will see later, in the case of La Desbandada 1937, includes a small portrait, basic information such as profession, age, and nationality, and a brief biographical overview to provide further context. So here we conclude our discussion on setting and move on to the next major component of the game, the adventure. Beyond just establishing the historical backdrop, the game must feature an adventure that serves to solidify all the historical concepts we aim to convey. It also serves as an example of the types of stories players can engage with, providing a complete product ready to be played. In my game, I've included an adventure called In Search of Norman Bethune. As we have discussed earlier, Bethune was a Canadian doctor who traveled to Malaga to aid in the city defense. However, halfway between Almeria and Malaga, he was unable to continue due to the advance of enemy troops. Instead, he and his team spent 3 days and 3 nights transporting wounded people by vehicle to the hospital in Almeria. He was a direct witness to the atrocities of that massacre, and thanks to his testimony and photographs, those events did not fade into obscurity. This story had such a profound impact on me that I decided to use it as the guiding thread in the game adventure. Ultimately, the purpose of this adventure is to provide an example of the types of story that can be played out with this role-playing game and how to develop them. Additionally, it serves as an expansion to incorporate more historical elements to be shared and explored within the game. This picture is a reminder of how, when crafting an adventure, even if we incorporate fictional elements or create a fictional storyline, surrounding it with real events enhances player immersion. And that's why, in my case, I strive to incorporate as many real elements and events as possible. To achieve that realism, I use the real location, event, and characters obtained from the initial analysis of the historical biography. I distribute this element throughout the adventure in two ways, especially spatially along the journey and temporally over the course of 7 days. Additionally, I sometimes modify 13 events to better fit the narrative of the adventure. For instance, I might invent an initial meeting between the civil and military government where players actively participate. This serves to set the stage and kickstart the story. Another example is leveraging the anecdote of Terra del Mar lighthouse keeper, as we saw earlier, to directly involve the players in that story. And finally, we blend all of this with a bit of fiction. While we are dealing with a historical game, a touch of fiction is necessary to sometimes bridge certain historical elements and to enhance the narrative. For example, when we create a plot hook to kickstart the story, as we have seen in the previous slide regarding the initial meeting. But additionally, it can be intriguing to invent an antagonist within the player group to add tension to the narrative. In my game, I incorporate this by allowing the possibility of a traitor among the players, adding an extra layer of suspense. Another common technique, which I also employ, is crafting a list of encounters. This allows us to include both real events that might not have been significant enough for direct inclusion in the setting, as well as fictional encounters that can enrich the gameplay experience. And beyond the setting and adventure, my game includes an additional section titled Additional Resources. Here, I've compiled some extra tools and materials that can be invaluable for conducting game sessions. As game creators, we often have a keen sense of how to run our games effectively and what tools can guide us in that endeavor. That's precisely why this section serves as a toolbox, streamlining the process. Here, I've included the encounter tables we discussed earlier, alongside a collection of maps and newspaper from the era. Incorporating real maps and newspaper into La Desbandá 1937 serves multiple purposes. Firstly, it enhances the immersion of the players in the game sessions. The use of authentic maps and newspaper achieves, achieves helps create a more realistic and immersive experience, allowing players to feel deeply connected to the historical context of the story being played out. This sense of realism can significantly increase the player immersion in the game and make the narrative more engaging. Furthermore, real newspaper, in particular, can serve as sources of inspiration for game master to create new adventure, character, or events within the game. By drawing from the content of historical newspaper, game master can enrich the storytelling experience, introducing new plot elements and adding depth to the overall gameplay. The incorporation of these real-world elements not only adds authenticity to the game, but also provides a wealth of potential story ideas that details for game master to explore and integrate into the gameplay. So we have covered the process of creating a historical game like La Desbandada 1937 and the contents and I incorporated into the game. But now take a quick look to the challenges that arose with the initial release, which serve as a first contact point with the audience, allowing for further evolution. Initially, the game was developed with an MVP approach aimed at quickly prototyping the game to measure interest and reception from the audience. Surprisingly, the game received a warm welcome, particularly from a more general audience attracted from its historical aspect. However, this led to a significant drawback. The game didn't provide instruction on how to play a role-playing game, assuming familiarity with the genre. This posed a barrier for those outside the role-playing game hobby, despite their keen interest in the historical narrative. Many were puzzled, mistaking it for a board game or struggling to understand the role-playing game concept. Another problem was that La Desbandada 1937 was initially designed as as a generic role-playing model compatible with any system. While this offered flexibility, it also created challenges, especially for the general audience. It required prior preparation and familiarity with role-playing system, which discouraged many potential players. Clearly, the game wasn't tailored for widespread accessibility, a crucial aspect for its educational intent. So, how do I tackle these issues? Clearly, the first step was to provide basic information about role-playing games. In my case, I created an initial chapter that provided brief information about role-playing games. I believe this is very important to consider for this type of games because although many modules and games are created without this type of information, it's valuable for a historical and educational game given its audience. Additionally, throughout the game, it's beneficial to include numerous practical examples of the rules and gameplay, such as the one shown here, explaining a game rule with an example scenario. To make the game more accessible, another significant change was transforming it from a generic role-playing module into a role-playing game with a specific game system. The challenge then was to find the right game system suitable for the audience of this game. The first decision to make at this level is whether to create a new game system or use an existing one, potentially with modification. This is often a debate topic, and the choice depends on various factors. Creating a new system can sometimes hinder the learning curve, as players need to learn an entirely new set of rules, whereas a known system might already be familiar to many players. Personally, I've been drawn to games for the setting, themes, or approach, only to be put off by a complex or lengthy system, ultimately deciding not to play them. So for my game, I choose to use and adapt an existing system. I needed a simple system that fit the setting, as I had as it had to be accessible to both specialized and general audiences. I decided on Graham Wensley Cthulhu Dark, a very simple system designed for horror and investigation games, particularly those in the Lovecraftian genre, similar to the Call of Cthulhu. While initially it may seem that this system wouldn't fit the setting of La Desbandá 1937, which isn't an horror or investigation game, I found that with a few adjustments, it could effectively support the wartime survival experience of my game. Mainly, I replaced the concept of sanity with breakdown, representing how morally and physically broken the characters are. This adaptation process was especially rewarding as it allowed me to collaborate directly with the author of Cthulhu Dark, which was an amazing experience. No one understands a system better than its creator. The result of this collaboration and adaptation was the development of a new variant called War Dark, which I published separately from those for those interested in using it for other games. Um, Related to the game system, we need to explain how player character sheets are created. In the case of La Desbandada 1937, both the character sheets and their creating process as simple as the game system itself. As you can see on the slide, this character sheet consists of a name, the breakdown value, their occupation, and a brief background. While the background doesn't have mechanical utility, it enhances the narrative depth of the characters. Additionally, to make it easier to start playing, I included 4 pre-generated character sheets. This allows players to jump right into the game without needing to spend time on character creation. And these are all the components of a historical role-playing game like La Desbandada 1937. Once we have all this created, what do we have to do next? One of the most important steps in game design, which we need to undertake both during the creation process and once we have the complete game, is playtesting. In my case, we ran 2 mini campaigns with 2 different groups, each consisting of 3 to 4 players, and we held around 8 2-hour sessions each. One of my goals was to ensure that the main story gradually gave way to the individual story of each player throughout the game. And that's exactly what we started to happen. Another crucial aspect is promoting the game. I always say that a rule book becomes a game when someone plays. And for someone to play it, they need to know about it. That's why spreading the word about the game is essential. This can be done through social media, where I have access to role playing game enthusiasts, but also in other environments, like game events such as the one we are attending today. Additionally, if possible, it's beneficial to reach out to more general and conventional media outlets like radio, TV, and the press. In the case of La Desbandada 1937, due to his historical aspect, it gained attention in national press and radio in Spain. The game La Desbandada 1937 has also allowed me to collaborate with other authors and adapt the story for Siete Días de Travesía, a Spanish role-playing game. In this game, I created an scenario about La Desbandada. Another important aspect to consider is the translation of the game. Originally written in Spanish, the game garnered significant interest due to this attention and the international importance of the Spanish Civil War. I decided to create an English edition. Fortunately, I found support from the Diet Foundation, which helped with the editing process, resulting in a very professional outcome. And subsequently, a French edition also came to light thanks to the generous collaboration of a French creator named Doc Dandy, who volunteered to translate the text into French. And lastly, this game has allowed me to collaborate with an association in Spain dedicated to raising awareness about the massacre of La Desbandada. This association, the Memorial Association of La Desbandada, retraced the same journey on foot every year that the refugees from Malaga were forced to take decades ago. I've been collaborating with them, and this year, during the journey, we held several role-playing sessions of La Desbandada 1937 in one of the towns along the route, and it was an incredibly intense and emotional experience. And that concludes the design process of a historical role-playing game, and in particular, the creation of La Desbandada 1937. I hope you found it interesting and enjoyable. So thank you all for attending this talk. And again, a big thanks to the event organizer for inviting me. Here are my contact details, both my email, my Twitter account, and my website where you can find my game. Please feel free to reach out if you want to discuss anything or have any question. And now, if anyone has any question or comments, feel free to ask them in the chat. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. Let's see some question. Regarding how many roles in your system, oh, roles, or are you talking about rules? Because if you are talking about how many rules, Cthulhu Dark is a very simple system that only have one rule. You throw the dice from a six face dice, and if you are near six, you are near the success, and if you are near one, you have a lot of problem. So I chose this system because it's very simplistic system. The target audience of my game was the general public mainly, so I decided I needed to use a system without too many rules. I assume that when you are talking about backslash from the right, you're talking about the political point of view. In Spain, this topic is complex to discuss. The education people have gotten in school is quite dark about this period of time. People really don't know a lot of things about the Spanish Civil War, and when you start to speak about Spanish Civil War, it's quite complicated because people tend to fight or to get a great discussion. So sometimes I have seen some fires when trying to talk about my game, but fortunately, the places and the people interested in the game was far away from this kind of problems. So I haven't got real problem with the game. Okay. Okay, now I now understand what you refer with roles. Okay, Cthulhu Dark when it's a very narrative system. There is no archetypes or kind of or types of players. So okay. Let me share the rules slides. Okay, okay. You don't have abilities in the characters. Okay, this is okay. Okay, we can hit the game. Book. Okay. This is the character sheet. You don't have any kind of ability, you don't have role, you don't have archetype, you only have a name and a profession, an occupation. This is the important part because the occupation determine when you try to do something quite complex, it's going to determine you succeed your occupation. I'm going to explain it because if you want to repair a car, and you are a normal person, you are going to throw one dice. But if your occupation is related with repairing car, you can use two dice. This is the only mechanic of the game regarding the character sheet. You don't have any kind or any other kind of ability. This is why I have used the system because I want a simple one in order to focus in the narrative aspect of the game. For me, this is a very narrative game, and I want to make sure that it was clear in the game system. When currently in my in I when I choose to play a role playing game with my group, I tend to use this kind of game because now I prefer to play more narrative games instead of tactics game or games centered on abilities. Maybe for tactic combat or similar things, we have war games or other role playing games. But my preference now are in this point, and I think for historical games, maybe it's more switchable. Okay. Regarding scenarios, I only provide an adventure. This adventure is very related with the setting. It's more a way of oriented player how to play the game. I explain. When you want to play this game, you have to decide how to play it. You can play. In my case, I have played mini campaigns lasting for a total of 20 hours. But I have also with the Association of La Desbandá, we have also mentioned it all before. We played one shot of 2 hours because the an important point of this game is that you have a route, you have a setting, an adventure, and you can decide what part of the adventure want to play, what part of the route want to play. You can decide what is the most important part of the massacre of La Desbanda and move to your table. So when you play it, the idea here is that you can, with all the information in the game, you can easily build your own adventure or your play. So there is one scenario, but that can be played in several ways. Okay, you can adapt it at your preference in order to play it. I see that we only have 2 minutes left, so if there is an additional quick question, we can. Okay, for sure. I'll talk with Alex now. Thanks for the tip. Okay, if you are fine, we are going to stop here. I have, as I have said, here you have my contact details. I'm going to write them in the Discord chat. If some of you have any question, want to talk about something or anything, don't hesitate to read me because I'm eager to talk with any of you. So thank you very much for attending. Let's continue with the SD HISCOM. Bye.